Hello my friends, welcome back to the cottage kitchen at the Elliott homestead. Y'all have been asking for this video for a long time and it's finally time to make it. To be fair, you've asked for cheese making videos, but confession is that I'm a pretty bad cheese maker. I've made a lot of cheeses over the year, most of them inedible, some of them really good, but I've sort of learned about myself, at least at this stage of life, that I just don't have the patience to be a really good cheese maker. Making like especially hard cheeses that need to be aged, they're like little babies and you need to care for them and coddle them, and they want the right humidity and the right temperature, and I'm homeschooling 4 kids, so there's just not time for that right now. Hopefully one day. I still have a lot of milk and I still love to eat cheese, and I love to put my hand to something to learn how it's made so that I can make it at home because it delights me. It's beautiful and it's delicious. So today we're gonna make some homemade mozzarella cheese. Now, we're gonna be making this like your standard ball of mozzarella like you would get at the store. Then we're gonna take it a step further for those of you who are like me and wanna make it beautiful. Before we dive into the mozzarella making, you're gonna need a few supplies. The first is milk. This is raw milk from Cici, but we're gonna be heating it up, so it doesn't matter if your milk is raw. You're also gonna need some citric acid. Citric acid is what is naturally occurring in citrus fruits, and we're gonna be using citric acid to acidify our mozzarella, which is what's gonna give it that beautiful stretch. The next supply that you're gonna need, and really the last supply, is some rennet. Rennet is what coagulates our milk. I was talking to a friend of mine about this the other day, and I was explaining how when you make cheese, you get curds and whey, and she was like, what is this? Is this what Miss Muppet is about? Like, is that what they're actually talking about? And I thought, oh man, there's people who don't actually know this. So yes, rennet is what we add to our milk, and that's gonna separate our milk liquids from our milk solids. That'll make more sense when we get over to the stove. This is gonna take about 15 or 20 minutes is all. It's super fast, super fresh, and really, really good. So gather your supplies and then we'll dive in. I would like to thank Kamikoto for sponsoring today's video.
Kamikoto is offering Elliott Homestead viewers an extra $50 off any purchase with the discount code Elliott50. You can visit kamikoto.com/Elliott Homestead to get your discount. These individually inspected, lifetime guaranteed knives made out of Japanese steel will be delivered to you in a beautiful ashwood storage box after having gone through a 19-step process that takes years to complete. Kamikoto makes their knives with Japanese forged steel by master craftsmen, and the result is shockingly sharp knives that are easy to clean, fit perfectly in your hand, and are made to last your entire lifetime. Michelin star chefs around the world use these knives. If you're not sure which knife you'd like most in your kitchen, I would recommend getting started with one of their knife collections. There's a link right below the video to Kamikoto where you can visit, browse the knives, and use code Elliott50 for a one-time $50 discount.
All right, first up, before we go over to the stove to heat our milk, I'm actually gonna take some of this cream off the top so you can see, because this is raw milk, it hasn't been homogenized. Homogenized means that it's mixed together in this kind of special machine that mixes the cream, the heavier milk, which you see on top here. This is our cream with our milk. So homogenized milk means there's no line separation. If you get milk that's really fresh, that's not homogenized, it'll naturally separate from milk to cream. I want this cream because I want to make some ice cream. There's no other reason for it other than that, so you can totally skip this step. The cream has a really beautiful yellow color because of all the butter fat. The milk looks kind of blue when you get down to it. Okay, so we're gonna use a full gallon of milk here. Of course, you can half this recipe if you'd like. This is gonna go into a stainless steel pot. So while my milk is heating up on the stove, I'm gonna add in 1.5 teaspoons of citric acid and just bring them up to about 80 degrees together. So while my milk is heating up, I'm gonna go stand over there and stir it in a second, but I'm going to dissolve just 1/4 teaspoon. You use such a small amount into 1/4 cup of water. That's gonna be enough to set our curds in our whey. So if you're unfamiliar with what rennet is, Oops, that was a little much. Wait, hold a little back. Rennet is what coagulates milk in a calf's stomach. So when you picture a cow and she has her baby, he drinks the milk, and in his stomach, even though he's taking in a liquid, he has rennet in his stomach that turns it into solids that then he could process through digestion. And so this is the way he can kind of extract water from it, from the solids. So it can be really helpful, not necessary, but helpful to use an instant read thermometer. These are so cool. I use them for everything. And you can just temp your milk. Okay, we're already there. So we're gonna stir our rennet in. Remember, this is a 1/4 teaspoon dissolved in water. We dissolve it in water because it helps it to spread evenly throughout the cheese because we're using such a small amount. If we were to just put that in directly, it would kind of curdle in one spot and not spread throughout the milk. So in goes our whole 1/4 cup of water, and this is gonna curdle really quickly. So essentially now we are going to end up with curds and whey. We're gonna keep heating this up. So this has only taken about 3 or 4 minutes so far. And you can see, look at, it's already going. So I kind of have this thing, this tool ladle. I've also used whisk. But what I'm gonna do now is I'm just gonna stir it gently. And you're gonna think, oh man, nothing's happening. And then it will just happen. And oh, look, you can already feel the tension underneath it. Look how fast that happens. And now all of a sudden, we start to get cheese solids. I'm only gonna stir this until it reaches 110 degrees. So I'm going really slow here. You can see it really starting to separate. And every once in a while, I'm just gonna stop and temp. So we're already at 99 degrees. So this is only gonna take probably about 45 more seconds. Look at that color difference now. You're really starting to see a separation. What's essentially happened now is all of my curds have clumped together and all of my whey has completely separated off. I'm still gonna temp it and get it up to 110. We're about 105 right now. I know there's some incredible cheesemakers out there who can do this just by feeling the whey with their fingertips. I do not have that skill yet. So I've learned to just do this in a way that works for me. And one of the ways that makes it really easy is by adding that citric acid, which means the acidification just happens really quickly. A traditional way of making mozzarella was to acidify it with lemon juice or something of the sort, and then it would sit out. Sometimes they would even just sour the milk and let it sit out for hours and hours and hours. That's not really going to work for my lifestyle right now. And so this is a way that I can kind of have the best of both worlds. We're there, we're at 110 degrees. So I'm gonna go back to using my slotted spoon here. It's gonna be really simple. I'm just gonna take this giant curd mass, which has now kind of just coagulated together. Look at that. Take it out of the way. That is already our mozzarella, but we're gonna make it even better. So I'm gonna dump some of this whey out. The next step in mozzarella making is to stretch our mozzarella. And in order to do that, we need to get it hot. And we're gonna make it hot by dipping it back into this whey. This is gonna be our hot liquid. We dunk the curds back in and we stretch them. I'm only gonna dump part of it out because it heats up quicker. I just need enough whey to get my curds down into. So I'm gonna take a few inches off the top and that just takes some minutes off the preparation. All right, I'm gonna crank this up now to about 150. You can see the curds here are leaching off more whey. Whey can be bitter. So I'm just gonna dump that back in and just let them hang out there. Now, people do mozzarella a lot of different ways. Sometimes people will chop this up and mix salt in. I think that's what I'm gonna actually do today. All of it is gonna melt back together once we put it into the pot. And what I found is if you just sprinkle this with if you just sprinkle the mozzarella with salt, or if you salt the whey, it just doesn't penetrate the cheese the way I want it to. It just doesn't taste quite salty enough for me. So I think I'll cube this up a little bit, mix my salt in, and then we'll put it back in the whey. And we are there. So I've salted my curd. I'm gonna salt my whey as well. Give that a little stir. Otherwise it'll just sink to the bottom and you'll end up with these weird little chunks of salt on the outside of your mozzarella. All right, see that steam coming off? That's a good sign. Now again, there are people much more brave than I am, much better at this than I am. But I have found a way that works for me, and that involves gloves because this is really hot. I've seen plenty of nonas do this by hand without any gloves. I haven't quite got there yet, although this is what happens to mine, so I have to be really careful not to dip it in. But let's go ahead and make 2 different balls here. So I'm gonna divide my cubes into 2. And these are going to go into my pot just like this. I'm going to use my fingertips just to hold them together. And you'll notice they naturally kind of want to bind together anyway. No big deal. They're just going to swim in there for a second and get hot. And once they've bound together, I'll add in my second ball. And because I've done this before, I'm pretty comfortable working with 2 at a time. If this is your first go, you can just work with 1 ball at a time. Feel that whey leaking into my glove holes. Now once the curd has soaked in there, see there's my salt. Once the curd has soaked in there, you'll notice that it starts to get a little bit stretchy. You can still definitely see the cubes I've made. And now begins the mozzarella dance, where you warm it and you stretch it. So you can see that's what we're all familiar with mozzarella. And we're gonna work it and stretch it. Okay, so it tore, no big deal. It goes back in. Let's move over to the other one. We're gonna work it and stretch it. So this one's not quite as warm, not quite stretching as well, but you can already start to see that shine, that beautiful mozzarella shine. Now, she's gonna dance, and our next one's gonna come out. We're essentially going to pull it until we can kind of feel that tension like it wants to break. Fold it in half, pull it again. We warm it up. We let her dance. Dance in the whey. She's stirring up the salt. She's getting warm. Not sure why my cheese is female. Just feels appropriate. And you can see each time I stretch and fold, it starts to get a little shinier. Let's move back to our second ball here. So my heat is off right now under my burner. I've got my whey at the temp I want it. Shiny, stretchy, but not smooth yet. We want it to be nice and smooth, okay? So we just bounce around using our fingertips. And we get stretchier and shinier each time we do it. Really starting to come together now into this beautiful smooth. It's like gack. Y'all remember gack? Gack? This is probably going to take 3 to 4 minutes, just kind of patiently warming, stretching, folding. You'll know when it's done because it'll all be shiny and smooth. All right, the mozzarella is stretched and it's folded. So now, look at that. It's shiny and beautiful. So now we're going to shape it. So traditionally, this is just done by folding it up, tucking your ends in, like so, and you create a little ball. Now, once you've done that, put it back into that whey, and it'll kind of melt and seal the edges together, like so. Now, super important here, if you want this to hold its shape like this beautiful little ball, you need to put it into an ice bath. And that will force it to kind of seize up. If you just set this on the counter, it's still nice and warm inside, and it'll just kind of flatten out, which is fine. It doesn't matter, especially if you're gonna grate it for something like homemade pizzas. But if you want to present it like this beautiful mozzarella ball, stick it in some ice water. Now we're gonna take this a step further. Your mozzarella can be done at this point, and you can store it just like this. You can store it in some of the whey, you can store it in some salted water, or you can just store it, in some sort of Tupperware, just like this in your refrigerator, and eat it nice and fresh. This is best eaten within the first few days. But we're gonna prolong that just a little bit over here where we're gonna make it really beautiful. Okay, we have this beautiful, fresh mozzarella that we could slice up and serve with a tomato salad or just heat on a piece of bread. So gorgeous. But I'm gonna pack some in a jar because it looks really beautiful, and fresh herbs and spices are a wonderful way to impart flavor onto our mozzarella. So if I was going to a friend's house, this would be such a fun gift to take. Let me grab my spices. All right, so you can spice your mozzarella and flavor it in so many different ways. I've just got a little jar here, and look at this, it's just beautiful. I'm gonna start by just sort of cubing this up. So how we cube it now will ultimately be kind of how it's presented when we eat it. So I'm gonna do maybe inch cubes here. And we'll start by packing those into our jar. Oops, one just went into the salt. All right, I've got some rosemary sprigs here. And I'm gonna add in some beautiful red pepper, the last of the peppers from the garden, just for the color and of course the flavor. And you can see it already starts to look really beautiful. I think homemade mozzarella is kind of one of those things, it's like homemade bread. You can buy it, and I'll guarantee you can buy it for cheaper than you can make it, but that's not the point. The point is that the work that we do with our hands, it has value, and learning how to do things has value, and learning how to value things has value. You can see how little cheese we walked away with, starting with a gallon of milk. It's pretty incredible, and I think it's good to appreciate when you go out and you buy food, or you eat at a restaurant, or you eat at somebody's table, the amount of effort that goes into putting that food on the table, it has value. So look at this, this looks so good already. I'm going to put in some garlic, maybe just a half clove, not too much, just enough to kind of take this mozzarella in the direction that I want it to go. And some spices. I'm gonna use my Bona Fortuna Aglio e Olio one again. That's such a tongue. Aglio e Olio again. This is such a beautiful blend as I inhale it. It's got parsley and chili pepper, sea salt, garlic, black pepper, really beautiful. I also have this gorgeous flaked sea salt. So you can see how this sort of starts to become a gift. And some more peppercorns, because I just can't help myself. I get them nice and chunky. We'll pack those in as well. Isn't that beautiful? You know, there's something very human about making something like this from scratch. It's the same reason people knit, or people paint, or people play music. You're putting your hand towards something. And now we're gonna top the whole, look at this. We're gonna top it off with some olive oil. So as you can imagine, this would be the type of food that you would just wanna dive into with a huge loaf of crusty bread. And now we've made our own gorgeous homemade marinated mozzarella. I'm gonna store this mozzarella in the fridge and try to enjoy it fresh over the next coming days with breakfast, with lunch, any time of day. It's gonna be so good. I hope you enjoyed our Make Your Own Mozzarella series. Remember, you can check out all the other Make Your Own videos in the playlist below, and check below the video to subscribe, to turn on notifications, to join in on one of our upcoming workshops where we cook together for 3 hours live, or to just check out the other resources we have available to you, like the printable version of this recipe, which is going out in our newsletter as soon as this video is posted. You can access the archives of recipes as well, so you can join that free newsletter right below the video, and we'll see you there. Cheers.